Looking at these ruins, I can only think about my friends and neighbors. Mr. Nieves, his wife and son Franklin. Mr. Nieves was our super and my confirmation godfather. The Ortiz family who lived among us. I know that they didn't move to Amalgamated, Hillman, or Seward Park because they weren't allowed to.
That's right.
What happened to my friends Georgie and Bobby Vasile? What happened to Mrs. Mitchell and Mr. Dumovich, who spent hours looking out the windows, watching their children and neighborhood children at play? What happened to Mr. and Mrs. Horn, an elderly couple who lived on the floor below me for many years? I remember Yachi, who owned a candy store on the corner of Attorney and Grand Street, along with his sister Jenny and their father Pop. Pop was an Albanian immigrant who came here for a better life. Yachi for years said he would open a new candy store when the city rebelled. Yachi's dead now.
All right, my name's Edward Rudyk, and I lived in the SPURA area. We lived on Grand Street, Grand and between Turney and Clinton, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful place to live. It's 42 years later. This building, this area has not been developed, and all you see are trucks in these places where humans once lived. This is where I used to live. This is now 410 Grand Street, and it used to be 420 Grand Street. And we had businesses here. We had businesses here. We had J&J's Italian restaurant. We had Saber's hardware store, where I used to work as a kid, and used to, I learned the hardware business at probably 8 or 9 years old. Right next to my building, we had a little shack that was built out from the wall, and it was Yachi's candy store. And it was a, Yachi's store was a fixture in the neighborhood. Everybody knew Yachi. Everybody stopped by for a Coke or an egg cream or a bag of potato chips. I used to yell out the window. My mom lived on the 4th floor in the front, and I used to yell out to my mother in Polish, "Mama, daj mi 5 cento," which means give me 5 cents. And she would take her little purse, put a nickel in it so I could buy a bag of potato chips. We had buildings here. We had Mrs. Mitchell, Mrs. Dumovich looking out the window. And it was a very interesting thing that you can look at the window sills and you can see the indentation in whatever type of stone it was made out of. And it was because people were leaning on the window sills looking out at children. They weren't necessarily looking out for children. That was maybe a byproduct, but they were watching the world go by, watching what's happening in the neighborhood. Another funny incident happened to me in the SPURA site. Again, my sister was 11 years older than I was, and she liked boys. Boys liked her, and she was making out with or trying to make out with one of her boyfriends, but I was attached to her. She was my second mother, and she took me out, and her boyfriend or one of her suitors was trying to be slick, and he said, "Hey, Eddie," I was probably about 6 at the time, maybe 5. He said, "Eddie, go around the corner and let me know whether it's raining or not, and I'll give you a quarter." By the time I got through with the guy, he was out probably about $5 in quarters, because I ran back real quick before they had a chance to really make out or anything, and I came back and said, "It's not raining, but I'm gonna look again if you want me to," and he gave me another quarter to do it. So probably made about 50 trips around the corner, and it was kind of disrupted my sister's dalliance with whatever this guy's name was. It makes me sad just looking at what's been done to this neighborhood and what has not been done to this neighborhood. Building housing for people. Things must be set right, because this was supposed to be rebuilt for low and moderate income families. And that's what we need to get done, and make sure that they live up to the promise.